Are you ready? Oh. Oh, yeah. Step up to the break, we got MJP and Green Man. It's the reigning championship team. From Milan to Japan and everywhere in between. Get the up-to-date news on the wrestling scene. So take a shot, boy. Is that the message you got? We about to go live. Are you ready to rock? So take a shot, boy. Is that the message you got? From the fans to the fans, let me hear the crowd pop. So take a shot. Oh yeah, so take a shot. Oh, so take a shot. Yeah.
Family, welcome to another exciting edition of A Shot of Wrestling, the interviews. Now, this is a throwback, a way back, a flashback, whatever you want to call it. We are going back into our archives and we're pulling one of those gems that we've been so fortunate to record in the last few years. If you haven't done so already, follow us on all forms of social media at A Shot of Wrestling on Facebook and Instagram, and Shot of Wrestling No A on Twitter. You can also contact us via email at inbox@ashotofwrestling.com or dial it up 619-343-3005 and leave your comments on a Shot of Wrestling hotline. Now, we say it time and time again that wrestling brings us together, and on episode 100, man, did that statement ring true more than any time ever. Someone that we were watching through our childhood on WWF TV, someone that this year, as WrestleMania returns to New York City, should be a candidate for the WWE Hall of Fame. And I mean, if he isn't, then there's something really wrong going on in the WWE. But regardless, we caught up with Brooklyn Brawler around the time he put out his audiobook called Brawler Unfiltered, which essentially is the Steve Lombardi story of him coming into the business and becoming that quote-unquote jobber that we have come so familiar with. But titles out of the way, he gave breaks to so many great individuals and was the first match for so many people like Bret Hart, Owen Hart, Mark Henry, The Rock, and the list goes on and on. So sit back, relax, and enjoy one of these vintage archived interviews from your boys here on A Shot of Wrestling.
Now sleep tell.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is episode 100, and we have a very special guest here this evening. None other than New York's own, Brooklyn's own, Brooklyn Brawler. How are you, my man?
I'm doing fantastic. First thing I want to do is thank you for being on your podcast. I've heard your past episodes, and I think you got a great podcast.
Thank you so much. Let's get right into it because there's a lot of information that you have to give to us, and whatever we don't go over today, we could hear it in your Audible book, which is amazing, by the way. Getting great reviews.
Did you listen to it?
I did, and I gotta tell you, it goes very well with a drink in hand, and you just sit back, and it literally felt like I was connecting with you, just like enjoying a drink with a friend at a bar, and you telling all these stories throughout the years.
Brawler Unfiltered, and it's on Amazon, it's on iTunes, it's on Kindle, it's everywhere.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is going to try not to go too much into the stories that are in the book because I want everybody to go and listen to it because it's amazing.
Right.
But let's just start off. Describe the moment you decided to pursue your career in professional wrestling.
Well, I always watched wrestling when I was a child. Me and my brothers used to always look at wrestling magazines. We used to watch Channel 47 in New York. It was called Lucha Libre. I know you're too young for that, I'm sure. But I always admired Bruno Sammartino. And my brother always admired superstar Billy Graham, so we always were lifting weights. And then one day somebody gave me tickets to Madison Square Garden, and it all started there. I was intrigued by the live performance at Madison Square Garden. I was fascinated by it. I fell in love with it that day.
It's amazing. You go more into detail in that audio book.
Right.
But you had a 32-year career in the WWE. 17 of those years were in the ring and 15 behind the scenes. What were your roles within that time?
Well, so like you said, 17 years. I was on the road 17 days a month, 2 to 4 planes a week, wrestling constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it started winding down, I moved into the production part of it behind the scenes, which I did all kinds of radio spots, all those DVDs that everyone looks at.
Yeah.
I shot every one of them. I'm the guy asking the questions to the wrestlers. So there was so many different responsibilities that went with that job. So I did that for 15 years, and I think it's pretty much of a record 32 years in one company.
I think a record for a lot of people in any company.
Yeah, I mean that's a great run.
Yeah. Is there any position while you were with EE that you wanted to explore but you didn't get an opportunity to?
You mean besides wrestling?
Yeah.
Oh, I always loved UFC, but I always said to myself, I better not do that because, it's a whole different animal. You know what I mean? Professional wrestling and UFC. I always looked at Brock Lesnar like, wow, he's larger than life.
Yeah.
With the greatest advocate of all time, Paul Heyman. That guy has got so much knowledge. Meeting Paul Heyman did nothing but give me more knowledge in wrestling.
Now, you were managed once by a manager, Bobby Heenan, at one time. I mean, that's a great name to have beside you and backing you up, too.
Yeah, Bobby Heenan was a fantastic friend, great guy. He was hilarious. If you knew him personally, you would realize that his personality was very, very charismatic. Mm-hmm. And he actually came up with the Brooklyn Brawler. He said to me, they're going to repackage you. We're going to make you the Brooklyn Brawler, and I'm going to manage you. And that's where it all started with the Terry Taylor, the Red Rooster, and all that stuff. And I was very saddened when he passed. But I got to see him in many autograph sessions before he passed.
Right. Now, you have many firsts. Being the first, you get a lot of recognition. Pat Patterson as the first IC champion. Hacksaw Jim Duggan, first one to win the Rumble. Finn Balor, the first Universal champion. But you have something very rare that is not talked about as much, but you were the first matches for many of the top superstars. Ricky Steamboat, Owen Hart, The Rock. That's crazy.
The Rock sent me a picture. It's about 2 feet by 2 feet, and it has a picture of him hip tossing me. It has $7 in the glass. He says, I had $7 to my name when I got into business, and I could never thank you enough. Oh, wow. Now, he named his production company $7 Production.
Wow.
Because he had $7. We had a wrestling match. He did very well. We went to dinner that night. He got a contract the next day, and the rest is history.
Are there any other firsts that are not really talked about in your career?
Bret Hart, I had his first match in WWE because, of course, he was in Calgary and different places. And when he came to the WWE, I was the first one to ever wrestle him in the Cincinnati Gardens. And Ricky Steamboat, like you said, Owen Hart, I'm trying to think now. There's so many. Mark Henry. Oh, wow. I had his first. Wow,
that's a
match.
Big guy to work in there.
He's a powerhouse. I have a lot of respect for him. He's a great guy. I always got along with him.
Yeah. We have a big saying on the show. It is wrestling brings people together. Early in your career, you had the opportunity to travel with Hulk Hogan. That was a blast. Now, through this experience, and you were fortunate, I'm sure, to meet some celebrities. Was there anybody that you were starstruck by that you marked out to?
Well, the biggest celebrity, with Hulk Hogan, I met Cyndi Lauper, Mr. T, I met Billy Crystal, I met Joe Piscopo, people like that. But the biggest, like you say, mark-out experience I ever had with a celebrity was when the WWE used to have guest GMs. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Every week would be a guest GM. So Hugh Jackman was a GM. So Hugh Jackman, I never knew him because I never watched his series, The Wolverine and all that stuff. So I'm walking down the hallway, and Hugh Jackman goes to me, "You're the only person I recognize in this building." I says, "What are you talking about?" He goes, in 1984, I watched you wrestle live with my dad. I wasn't even an actor yet, in Sydney, Australia.
Oh, my gosh.
I says, "That's right. That was my first Australian tour." He goes, "Do you mind if I take a picture with you and tweet it out?" I said, "Well, shouldn't I be asking you that?" He goes, "No." He goes, "No, it's very, very important to me because I was with my father and I remember you."
Wow.
And I knew he was telling me the truth because he said you had a beard, you had this, he knew everything about me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, man. Well, it's true then. Wrestling does bring people together. It's a motto of the show. Now, you're at a point in your career where people come to you for advice, but is there any piece of advice that you received that you still carry to this day? Well,
Rock always said, it's nice to be important, but more important to be nice. which is really very strong. I always used a saying that said, be humble or you will stumble. Now, in the wrestling industry, you have to leave your ego at the door.
Yeah.
You could forget about coming in with a big ego and walking through the dressing room because they'll eat you alive. I mean, they'll literally tell you, get out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because egos make you ugly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a difference between an ego outside the ring and an ego inside the ring.
Absolutely. And I think if you get into a locker room and you're trying to put on a product for the fans, the more tight-knit that the locker room is, the fans feel it when it comes outside. There's not that
family.
tension. Yeah.
It's a family.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. I made so many friends over the years. I mean, I went to Oregon and wrestled Mr. Perfect before he was Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig.
Mm-hmm.
I became very good friends with Kurt Hennig. I became good friends with Rock. I became good friends with John Cena. I mean, everybody is a family.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's like a fraternity of guys, you know?
Yeah, and I still keep in touch with all of them.
Now, as a wrestling fan, who do you get excited to see perform nowadays?
As a wrestling fan, I like to see Brock Lesnar.
Okay.
I love watching Brock Lesnar. This man is a specimen. Unless you've stood next to him, you don't realize this guy is like a machine. He's like a machine. I think he's unbeatable, you know, because you've seen him in the UFC. He went into UFC and they're all laughing. Oh, you come into here. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? He made a few mistakes. I mean, he fought Frank Mir, I think his name was, and he gave him his leg, and Frank grabbed his leg. But he learned by all his mistakes, and he never repeated his mistakes. And then he finally got it. He clicked and became UFC champion. And well deserved. So
as someone that you're so excited to see, like Brock Lesnar, I love seeing Brock Lesnar too. Why isn't he on TV as often then?
Well, you know what? You don't overexpose somebody. And I'm not talking for the company. I'm just talking in my own knowledge. Yeah. Okay, if you eat steak every single week, and then they bring out a steak and you go, oh, not again. You know what I mean? You got to stay fresh. You eat a steak. We don't give you one for a month. You eat a steak again, then you enjoy it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Nice analogy there. In every business, I'm sure there's individuals that love to say, I remember how things were back in my day, you know? How different is the business now from when you were breaking into it?
Well, the business is completely different today as it was back in the 80s and the early 90s because it was privately owned. Mm-hmm. Once the business went corporate, now we're dealing with stockholders. We're dealing with a board of directors. Now, back then, like, you remember Chief Jay Strongbow?
Yeah.
He used to say, the inmates are running the asylum. You know what I mean? Like, in other words, there would be a lot of wrestling ribs, jokes. Yeah. Like Owen Hart. Oh, that's another first. Owen Hart. He was a master at pranks.
So we've heard.
Yeah. But he was a great guy. I wrestled him as Owen Hart many times, as Blue Blazer many times. I've wrestled so many people. I wrestled Bruno Sammartino.
Now, how was that? Because that's someone that you idolize, you know, going into the business. Yeah. I could only imagine like meeting some of the people that I'm like, wow, these guys are like, if I met Triple H, I'd be like, dude, I love you. Like, you're my guy, you know? So how is it getting into a ring with someone like?
Well, like I was saying, me and my brothers used to look at wrestling magazines in my mom's backyard. It used to be Chief Jay Strongbow, Supervisor Billy Graham, all these people. I never realized I'd be wrestling every single one of these people like 20 years later, or whatever it was, 15 years later. But it's amazing. It's amazing the way my life went and all the people that I've wrestled. I mean, and the interesting part about it is Bruno was doing commentary with Vince, and Vince wanted him to have one more match. And he goes, only if I wrestle Lombardi.
Oh, wow.
Because he was watching my matches and he realized that I'm not greedy in the ring. You know, I do everything to help the guy out. And he felt safe with me. Mm-hmm. Bruno, to this day, if you mention my name, he will totally speak highly of me.
Well, I know from just listening to someone to your previous podcast and, you know, reading up a little bit about you, you don't see the term jobber, for example, as it being something bad. You know, you're pretty proud of being a jobber, and you've built your career of doing that and putting people over. Is there something that you've learned from putting so many people over throughout the past few years that you want everybody to get about the jobbers in general?
Well, first of all, I don't care about jobber. A lot of guys go, don't call me a jobber. Don't call me an enhancement guy. I don't care. Because you know what it is? A jobber, well, you call them a jobber, they call them enhancement guys now. My job was to make any wrestler look good, even if they did not have the ability to look good on their own. which I had to adjust myself. Like Mark Henry would be a completely different match than Owen Hart. You know what I mean?
Right.
Mark Henry's a powerhouse. He's giving me bear hugs. He's giving me power slams. Owen Hart, he was very, very technical. He would do all these crazy moves and this and that. It's all different. The powerhouse is actually easy to work with.
But I could imagine
I mean?
if you have to make so many adjustments to yourself and the way that you're wrestling, it must be so much harder to be a jobber than, to hold your own trade and be like, hey, I'm going to just be the technical guy. I'm just going to be like the powerhouse guy.
No, but you can't call that. That's all the office's decision. That's Vince's decision.
Okay.
You know what I mean? They tell you who you're wrestling. You don't say, I want to wrestle this person.
Right. Now, Raw has been around for, it's going to be 25 years, and a lot of top stars are returning. It's going to be in Brooklyn Barclays Center and also at the original Manhattan Center where the first episode debuted. Could we expect Brawler to be one of those names?
Well, I don't think I haven't gotten any calls. I don't have nothing. I mean, I don't know.
It'd be a shame,
Well, don't stop
New
my
York
calls.
loves
It's
you.
I know New York would go crazy if I came out.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I don't know. Right now, no.
Okay. How and why did the decision for your time to wrap up with the WWE come around?
Okay, if you take 2 to 4 planes a week for 32 years, would that kind of burn you out?
Oh no,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's I did all the years. I've wrestled everybody. I've been production work. I did all this stuff. I thought the time was right.
Okay. And how is it adjusting to life after the WWE?
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah?
I'm so happy.
I love that.
I'm so happy. I'm still wrestling
Good for you.
independently. I wrestle independently, and I go to autograph sessions, and I still get to see the guys at autograph sessions. The family always comes back together.
Yeah. Now, speaking of the indies, your first indie match was with Eric Jaden, and we briefly talked.
Eric Jaden and me had a match in Brooklyn. I got to speak very highly of Jaden. He's a very gifted wrestler. And I even talked about him in Jericho's podcast. He's a very good guy, but me and him, when we get together in the ring, it's like chemistry.
Yeah,
it's like there's something special about Eric, and I always liked Eric.
What is it about you two when you got together in the ring that it just felt
it's
right?
Like a natural like hatred. Like, in other words, you're better than me, I'm better than you, you're better than me. But Eric's a very good wrestler, so it's not like I'm outclassing him. We could put a great show on together.
Well, hopefully a lot of the independent companies in the area are listening to this show and book that match, because I'm sorry to say that I missed that match. And if it came around again, I would not make that mistake.
Well, I beat Eric, and Eric wants a rematch.
Yeah.
So, and I'm willing to give it to him.
Okay. Well, the indie scene is blowing up. I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
Many top names are making more money now outside of bigger companies and in the independent scene. Do you see this being a problem in the future, or do you think it's going to be better for the business?
I think it's better for the business that the wrestlers have another avenue to go to after they leave WWE. I think it's great. And indies are so much more relaxing. I mean, you don't have, it's so corporate in WWE.
Yeah.
But the indies, you just come in, you just see, and I like to talk to young guys and just like give them a little bit of knowledge. Always saying, watch my match. I watch the match, but sometimes they go around the block to cross the street. Now that's an analogy, meaning you're doing too much when you could do less and get more out of it.
Right. Do you have any passions outside of the ring?
Passions outside of the ring? Yeah, my wife. She's my biggest passion.
I love it in your audiobook how you did mention, I was waiting for that moment to see how you and her got together. Because in the life that you guys live as professional wrestlers, I always wonder, there's so many women out there, throwing themselves at you. How do you keep a romantic relationship going? How did you do it?
Well, my wife, the best part about my wife is she's never been to a wrestling match before I met her. I was with Hulk Hogan when I met her, and she didn't even know who Hulk was.
Oh, wow.
I love that because she wasn't a wrestling person. She told me when she was younger, she used to pass by it with the channels and just keep going and go, oh, look at that. Little did she know she'd be married to one. We're married for 32 years.
Congratulations.
Which is very rare in the wrestling business. It's rare in general.
In general, yeah, absolutely. Very old school. And you come from a very old school family, large family, right?
Yeah, Italian family in Brooklyn, New York. You're still there. And are you Italian?
I am Ecuadorian, but again,
Oh, okay.
I feel like my grandparents back in the day just got busy. I have so many aunts and uncles. You know, times are different now. I have one son, but I
Oh,
still
good.
try to find a balance, which is why I ask you, how do
Right.
you find the balance between like your passions of wrestling and the balance of personal life?
Well, when I was on the road steady, my wife traveled with me like for the first 10 years of our marriage, and
Hmm.
then after that, it was more like she would take me to the airport and then pick me up, and it would be like every week was like a honeymoon. You know what I mean? Because we'd have that 3 day break for Raw or SmackDown. But then again, I was on the road 17 days out of the month.
Gotcha.
So, but just so she would fly in and she would meet me, and oh, there was so many transitions. But she used to go a lot.
Awesome. We just wrapped up 2017, new year ahead of us. Do you have any goals or resolutions?
In 2018, I'm in
Hmm.
the best shape of my life. I'm in better shape right now than when I was 25.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
I've
The,
seen
the,
pictures. You're
have you seen the
huge.
pictures? Did you see the newest picture that just came out of me?
You're huge. Your chest is
My
incredible.
chest is that's because my love for Bruno Sammartino. I always concentrate on the chest. It looks like two slabs of beef, but believe it or not, I'm just 200 pounds.
Yeah. Wow, man. Lean. Very lean.
Very lean, but still muscular.
I like that. Now, briefly, we just talked about a little bit about your past, your present, and your future. I want everybody to go listen to this audiobook because it truly is amazing. And take my advice, drink a shot, put a Jack Daniels drink right next to you, and then just enjoy the hour and a half ride with Brooklyn Brawler, man.
Oh,
Um,
unbelievable. And I'll tell you the best thing is if you want me to give a personal message to you, you could go to celebrity videos. Do you know about
yeah.
celebrity
Mm-hmm.
videos? I'll say happy birthday, Merry Christmas. I'll give a personal message. And then I got a whole, on WrestlingTees.com, I got about 10 or 12 personally designed shirts. So I urge everyone to please check it out.
When and where can we see you next? And also, where can we follow you on all social media?
But you can follow me on Twitter on Brawler Real. There's two R's in the middle, Brawler and then Real, one word.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a very great conversation with the Brooklyn Brawler here on episode 100 of A Shot of Wrestling. Thank you so much for
Well,
being with us.
I appreciate it. You're doing a great job. Props to Eric Jaden for getting me to come on your podcast.
I appreciate that. Do you mind just sticking around for one more moment? We have last call.
Stay tuned to the end of this episode because the Brooklyn Brawler is going to be on Last Call.
Well, there you have it, episode 100 with Brooklyn Brawler, with special thanks from our boy Eric Jaden for making that happen for us. But interviews, by now you know, are just part of the conversation that we have here on A Shot of Wrestling. We also host a weekly podcast hosted by Michael J. Putty, and he goes over the news and reviews the shows that affect our wrestling universe week in and week out. You can find that anywhere you get your podcasts, which are powered by B Plus Player Radio and now BodySlams.net. Now, episode 100 was also the episode where we debuted our new intro called Take a Shot, created by the fastest rapper in the Southwest, Paddiac. So make sure you give him a follow and listen to the full song, now uploaded on our YouTube channel. Finally, I'd like to thank everybody who continues to support us here on A Shot of Wrestling. Remember to subscribe, like, and share this video. I'm the Green Man. Good night.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time I need to announce it's last call at the bar.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have made it through another episode of A Shot of Wrestling, and no episode would be complete then without last call. So we have Steve Lombardi, the Brooklyn Brawler, back here for last call. Now, Steve, this is how it's going to work. Basically, I give you rapid fire questions. You give me the first answer that comes up to mind. Are you ready?
Okay.
And away we go. What is your favorite adult beverage?
Probably a protein shake.
Nice. What is the best feature on a woman?
My wife's features, her blonde hair, her blue eyes, and that's the features that I married.
Oh, you're getting over tonight, man. Who was the best in their first WWE match with the Brooklyn Brawler?
The best I would have to say was Bret Hart in Cincinnati Gardens. The guy was like so good. And it was a new breed coming in because we had Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, this guy. And then we got Bret Hart walking in the dressing room with a backwards baseball cap that just looked like an ordinary guy. You know what I mean? But then when he got in the ring, he was technically sound.
Yeah. What is your favorite meal that your wife cooks?
Oh, man, she's a tremendous cook. I would have to say lamb shank in Chardonnay wine.
Ooh, fancy. I need to come
Oh,
over.
yeah, she's a great cook.
Other than wrestling, what is your favorite sport?
Other than wrestling, my favorite sport is roller derby. No, I'm only kidding. I always say that, but they don't even have roller derby no more, do they?
I haven't seen
I don't know. I watched a little bit of football here and there, baseball. I actually did a batting practice with the Detroit Tigers.
Oh, cool.
And that's a lot
Wow.
harder than it looks. Trust me.
Oh, I can imagine. Who is your favorite heel of all time?
Well, I can't say Brock Lesnar because people love him too.
Yeah.
The favorite heel.
He's my favorite face.
Favorite face would have to be Shawn Michaels. I got to wrestle him in Madison Square Garden too.
That's a moment that people need to listen to the audiobook for. That's amazing, by the way.
Oh, the way it happened.
Yes, absolutely.
The way it happened, because that was a big. Yeah, I don't want to give it away. But
Yeah.
if you listen to this audiobook, you're going to hear things that have never been told before.
We're still having last call here. What is the best place you've ever traveled for wrestling?
Well, so many. I enjoyed New Zealand. I enjoyed Japan. I enjoyed India. I enjoyed Kuwait. I've wrestled all over the world so many times, but my favorite place to wrestle is in Brooklyn, at the Barclays Center.
What is your go-to song for karaoke?
My go-to song for karaoke, Frank Sinatra, My Way.
Like it. What is the one thing you would want to be buried with?
The one thing I would want to be buried with is some kind of token from my wife.
Oh. And finally, what was your favorite era in the WWE?
The Attitude Era.
My kind of guy. Thank you so much again for being part of episode 100. This is a great way to kick off the next 100 episodes of A Shot of Wrestling. Thank you.
There you go. And I hope I come on again. I'll be happy to come on again.
Thank you so much.
Because a lot of things are happening in the future, and you'll be the first to find out.
Really appreciate that.
Hey baby, I hear the bell ringing, hip tosses and body slams. Oh my. And maybe you seem a bit confused, yeah baby, but I got you pinned. Ha 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 ha. But I don't know what to do when I see them with that golden case. They're cashing it in. Authority all in my face. What is a man to do? Good night, everybody.